think playing horror at night is all jump scares and loud moments, most games promise fear but barely deliver tension that lasts. A few experiences understand pacing pressure and silence. The games here don't rely on tricks. Each one surprises differently, testing nerves focus and how far you're willing to go. Layers of Fear starts in a way that feels almost calm, placing you inside an old house that looks empty at first glance, yet never feels truly safe. As you move forward, the silence becomes heavier, and every step feels slightly wrong, as if the house itself is paying attention to you. What quickly makes this experience stand out is how the environment refuses to behave normally, with rooms subtly shifting and familiar paths changing when you least expect it. As you continue, the game begins to blur the line between what you saw moments ago and what you're seeing now, creating a constant sense of unease. Some players are surprised by how personal and psychological the experience becomes, especially since there's no combat or clear danger chasing you. Instead, the fear comes from losing trust in your surroundings, and that feeling tends to linger long after you stop playing. And once that discomfort sets in, the next game takes that same tension and drops it into a much more familiar and realistic situation. The closing shift immediately feels uncomfortable by placing you in a quiet, ordinary environment where nothing seems wrong at first. You're alone during a late-night shift, doing simple tasks that feel familiar, almost boring, and that normality is exactly what makes the tension work. As time passes, small details start to feel slightly off, from background noises to subtle changes in your surroundings, making you constantly question whether something is actually happening or if your mind is filling the silence. What makes this experience stand out is how grounded it feels, never relying on exaggerated horror elements, but instead building fear through anticipation and uncertainty. The game slowly trains you to expect something without ever clearly showing it, which keeps your attention locked in, especially when playing at night. Many players find themselves second-guessing every sound, every movement, and even their own reactions. That feeling of vulnerability sticks with you because it feels possible, like something that could happen in real life. And once that realism fully sinks in, the next game removes all doubt and throws you into pure survival. What really makes this stand out is how the tension lingers even when nothing happens. You're left waiting and listening, and that uneasy feeling carries perfectly into what comes next. Outlast wastes no time establishing its intensity, dropping you into an abandoned asylum where you're completely defenseless from the very beginning. Darkness surrounds you almost constantly, and your only way to see clearly is through a camera that slowly drains its batteries, forcing you to choose carefully when it's safe to look and when it's better not to. What makes the experience so overwhelming is the constant pressure, with danger always nearby and no real way to fight back. As you move through narrow hallways, hide in the shadows, and listen to footsteps getting closer, every sound feels amplified, especially when playing late at night in complete silence. Some players are drawn in by the raw panic the game creates, while others feel exhausted by how relentless it can be. That exhaustion is part of the fear, keeping you tense even when nothing is happening. And if being hunted without escape already feels stressful, the next game takes that tension and stretches it into something slower and far more calculated. This kind of fear doesn't disappear when the screen goes quiet. It sticks with you for a moment, making silence feel heavier. And once you're in that mindset, the next game hits even harder. Alien Isolation builds fear through patience, placing you inside a space station where danger doesn't rush toward you, but instead waits and observes. From the moment you arrive, every movement feels risky, and every sound feels like it could be a mistake. What makes the experience stand out early is how intelligent the threat feels, adapting to your behavior rather than following predictable patterns. Long moments of silence become just as frightening as sudden chaos, especially when you're hiding and listening to distant footsteps echo through metal corridors. The slow pace can divide players, but that deliberate tension is what makes the game so effective at night when quiet moments feel heavier. You're constantly aware that safety is temporary, and that awareness never fully goes away. Even when nothing happens, your mind stays alert, and once that constant pressure settles in, the next game brings the horror closer, tighter, and far more personal. It's the type of experience that doesn't need constant scares to work. The atmosphere settles in slowly, especially at night, and that tension leads perfectly into the next game. Which one caught your attention so far? Let me know in the comments. Resident Evil 7 immediately feels different by trapping you inside a decaying house where everything is close, cramped, and uncomfortable. Instead of large open spaces, you're surrounded by narrow hallways and unsettling characters who feel disturbingly real. The first-person perspective pulls you directly into the experience, making every sound, every movement, and every encounter feel invasive. As the game progresses, many players are surprised by how heavily it leans into dread rather than action, allowing tension to build naturally instead of relying on constant combat. The fear here feels intimate, especially when playing alone at night, because you're never given enough space to breathe. Even moments of calm feel temporary. That sense of unease stays with you. And just when you think you've adjusted to it, the next game dives even deeper into psychological pressure. Instead of pushing you forward, the game makes you hesitate. And that hesitation is exactly when fear feels strongest, setting the tone for what comes next.
What the fuck?
Madison begins with confusion and never truly lets go of it, placing you inside a house filled with strange symbols, disturbing imagery, and unanswered questions. From early on, silence becomes a major part of the experience, making every footstep and distant sound feel uncomfortably loud. What keeps players on edge is how solving puzzles rarely brings relief, often making the atmosphere feel heavier instead. The game slowly trains you to expect something bad to happen without ever clearly warning you when. That anticipation becomes exhausting in the best possible way, keeping your attention locked in during late-night sessions. Many players describe the experience as mentally draining, not because of difficulty, but because of how tense it feels for such long stretches. That pressure lingers even after you stop playing, and once it fully settles in, the next game slows things down while making the emotional weight even stronger. By the time this section ends, you're not relaxed, just quietly alert, which is exactly the mindset horror thrives on and makes the transition to the next experience seamless. Silent Hill 2. Remake surrounds you with fog, isolation, and a deep sense of loneliness from the very beginning. The town feels empty, yet full of meaning, and every step forward feels deliberate and heavy. Sound plays a huge role here, with footsteps echoing too long and static cutting through the silence in ways that keep your mind constantly active. Instead of relying on sudden scares, the game builds discomfort through atmosphere and emotion, creating a type of horror that feels deeply personal. Many players are surprised by how unsettling the experience becomes without ever needing to shock you. It's the kind of fear that stays with you, especially at night when quiet moments feel endless. And once that emotional weight settles in, the next game traps you inside a space where paranoia never truly fades. This isn't the kind of fear that ends with a jump. It builds slowly, leaves you uneasy, and once that discomfort settles in, the next game takes advantage of it. Would you keep playing this one late at night, or stop early? Tell me what you think.
I'm ready.
Visage starts quietly, placing you inside a normal-looking house with no clear objective and no immediate threat. That calm doesn't last long, as subtle changes begin turning the familiar into something deeply unsettling. Lights flicker, doors move on their own, and events happen without warning, making it hard to tell what caused them. What makes the experience so effective is its unpredictability, especially when played at night, when every sound feels amplified. The game never tells you when something is about to happen, forcing you to stay alert even during long periods of silence. That constant uncertainty builds paranoia, making players question not just the game, but their own surroundings. And once that unease fully takes hold, the next game replaces fear with something much harder to shake. The silence here does more work than any loud moment ever could, giving your imagination room to take over and making what comes next even more effective. Soma doesn't rush to scare you, creating discomfort through atmosphere and ideas instead. The environments feel empty and lonely, encouraging reflection rather than reaction. As the story unfolds, it raises unsettling questions about identity and existence, shifting the fear from physical danger to emotional weight. What makes this experience stand out is how those ideas slowly build over time, becoming more disturbing the longer you think about them. Many players don't expect how heavy the experience becomes, especially when played late at night in silence. The game stays quiet, giving those thoughts space to linger. Instead of pushing you forward, Soma allows discomfort to settle naturally. That lingering unease is what makes it memorable. And once those questions start to stick in your mind, the next game takes emotional discomfort and turns it deeply personal. Devotion feels intimate from the moment you begin, placing you inside an apartment that slowly changes over time. The horror comes from implication rather than loud moments, allowing the story to unfold quietly. As you explore, small details reveal a deeply personal and unsettling narrative. The slow pacing gives the experience room to breathe, making each discovery feel heavier. Playing at night makes this even stronger, as silence fills the gaps between moments. Many players find Devotion disturbing because it focuses on human emotion rather than traditional horror. The more you understand what happened, the harder it becomes to shake the feeling it leaves behind. The game doesn't rush its impact, letting discomfort build naturally. And once that emotional tension settles in, the next game takes a familiar setting and twists it into something far more aggressive. Infliction places you inside a normal home that slowly turns hostile, starting with small changes that are easy to miss. Objects feel out of place, and the environment begins reacting to your presence. What makes the experience unsettling is how grounded it feels, making the horror seem possible. The tension builds steadily through observation rather than sudden shocks. Playing at night strengthens that feeling, as silence outside the game mirrors what's happening inside. The house becomes a reflection of emotional trauma, turning familiarity into something threatening. Many players find the experience disturbing because it feels personal and unavoidable. By the time things escalate, the discomfort is already set. And once you've seen how unsettling a normal space can become, the final game pushes unpredictability even further. The mortuary assistant begins quietly, placing you alone in a workspace where routine initially feels safe. As you repeat the same tasks, subtle changes start to appear, slowly breaking that sense of normalcy. What makes the game terrifying is its unpredictability, with events unfolding differently each time. You're never sure if something already happened or is about to happen, which keeps tension high. Playing late at night makes this even worse, as silence amplifies every detail. The game never gives you full control, forcing you to doubt your senses. By the time it ends, the fear doesn't explode. It lingers, and that quiet, heavy feeling is the perfect way to close the list. If you made it this far, you already know these games hit harder when the lights are off. Tell me in the comments which one caught your attention the most. Leave a like, subscribe for more, and remember, some nights are quieter for a reason.